GenRight Nation, thanks for joining us today. It's March 22nd, and as you know, we do this live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time on Facebook and YouTube. So today we've got special guests, Brendan and John Currie from ROCKJOCK, and we're gonna talk to them and about a bunch of the parts they brought to us. So we've got a great show for you. If you've got a JK, JL, even general, upgrade, builds, Johnny joints, all kinds of stuff, you're going to want to stay tuned. And of course, we're here to talk about your favorite subject and ours, off-roading. Stay tuned. So by all means, type in your comments. And Jennings behind the camera here will be reading us off your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. So by all means, do that. And let's see. Today, these guys have brought us a whole bunch of really cool parts to talk about, mostly for JK and JL, right?
Yeah, what we brought today is mostly JK stuff. A lot of the stuff is very similar to our JL stuff as well. But we thought we were going to be working on a pretty stock JK today, but it's a little more modified than we thought. So we're going we've got some stuff we're going to talk about and show you what we have that's kind of new for the JK or that's changed in the last year or so, and whatever. And if you have any good questions, give us a shout and we'll try to answer them for you.
Yeah, I think, what we encountered today was very similar to probably what you guys have, is very few of them are stock anymore. So they're in varying degrees have been modified. And we're going to talk about what we found, what you guys offer, how it's better than even your previous generation. So you guys are all going to want to hear that, so stay tuned on that. We got a few people on?
Hi, yeah.
Sure.
Steve Bird says hello from Michigan.
Nice.
Adam Halfley, hey there, GenRight crew. Troy Merritt is on.
Nice.
Esther Parrott Newcomb from Virginia Beach. Tyler Hagan is watching on Facebook and YouTube. Tom Cantwell, VB Tom, Jeff Lauren, Virginia Beach checking in.
Nice.
Good evening, GenRight. Heath Ironside, Gary Swagger says hi. VB Tom, Chris Goodnow, and 18 more right now, and then
Awesome.
a whole bunch more on YouTube.
All right.
Hello.
Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate you guys, your loyalty and watching. As usual, we're going to show you in all kinds of cool stuff that whether you can use it on your Jeep or not, maybe you've got some friends that you can share the information with. So by all means, feel free to share links to the show on either Facebook or YouTube to any of your Jeep friends for sure. So where do you guys want to start on this?
I guess the best place, we'll just start, kind of show the stuff we got laying on the table and what it is and what it does and what's maybe different about it than what's on this Jeep. This Jeep was built a few years ago, so some of the stuff has changed over time. And if you have a JK, since we were going to be working on the front of a JK today, we kind of brought stuff that was going to work on the front of a JK. So, I mean, right off the bat, this Jeep has an aftermarket suspension on it already. It actually already had part of our steering on it, but you can see it's got a ram assist on it. And if we would have known that, we would have brought the pieces to put the new tie rod on there. But this has a welded on bracket here, and we actually have a clamp on bracket, but we didn't bring one because we didn't know it had
Yeah, you said it's really trick. It's like forged or something?
Yeah, it's actually forged chromoly. It's a two-piece deal. I think it's 8 bolts that clamps on. It's adjustable back and forth. It would have replaced that easily, but we should have got a picture of the Jeep before we came. Then we would have known.
But you're going to send us that, and we'll put it on.
Yeah. So anyways, it's already got the 42 millimeter tie rod on it, and it's just got the bracket welded on it. So that's this. And one thing we are going to change today is the drag link. This actually had one of our original drag links on it, and this is it right here. And this is our new high clearance drag link that you can see it's got more of an organic shape to it. And the reason it's shaped like this is this actually replaces this. Is it any stronger? Yeah, it's more rigid in here. But the idea for this is we're also working on a high steer system for the JK, which is going to involve high steer knuckles. And this new steering will not only work on the stock JK, but it'll also work on the new high steer knuckle that's probably 6 to 9 months away. So it's something we introduced last year for the JL, the high steer knuckle. And so now we're taking a step back and we're going to do that same thing for the JK. It's been kind of well received on the JL. Flattens all your angles out, flattens the track bar out, gives you flatter angles, and gives you like another 2 3/4 inches of ground clearance underneath the tie rod. So there's a bunch of benefits to that. And it replaces your old knuckles with a new iron knuckle. As we were working on this one, we found out one of these knuckles was a little loose in the rod end. And so if your JK is getting older, this might be a good upgrade. Or if your knuckles are starting to show wear and now the rod ends aren't staying tight anymore, usually what they do is they'll waller out inside the taper. So that'll be a replacement for that. So this is our new drag link. We're going to be installing this today. It's going to replace that drag link. As we're on this side of the table, one thing that we've changed in the last couple of years, this Jeep actually has an anti-rock on it, which is a common upgrade for JKs and JLs. But we have a different arm. We have a forged arm, where this has a fabricated arm. So this arm's not only stronger, it's a little nicer looking, and that's kind of our standard our standard arm. And then also, and this stuff we changed a couple years ago, but since this has the old stuff on it, I'm just trying to bring up what is new that's different than what's on here. We make these brackets. These are a forged chromoly bracket. You can see that they got our logo and everything. So one-piece bracket. Well, the original bracket was a fabricated bracket. So the way it works is, as we get enough volume to make stuff that in a better way, it affords us to go make the tooling to make stuff forged instead of fabricated. And we've done that with a lot of stuff. As the volume, when we first start making something, we'll move over here to the track bar. This is somebody's aftermarket track bar that was on the Jeep.
Fabricated.
Fabricated aftermarket track bar. And we were making track bars, and there's limitations on what you can do when you fabricate something. When it's forged, there's a lot less limitations. And one of those things, if you can see right here at the end, when I put these track bars beside each other, see how this track bar has this notch right here where it comes out like that? Well, this goes in the vehicle like that. So if you have like a Dana 60 or some aftermarket front end that's bigger, this gives you that extra clearance. Where you can see this one right here would go like that. See this distance right there? You can't get that bend really any closer to that where it's welded on. And then that's another thing. There's no welds in this. This is one piece all the way through. So.
And it's a lot more rigid.
Did you have a question?
Dan has a question
Okay,
for you
Dan.
guys. 2005 LJ looking into getting aftermarket sway bar. Tony usually says that he only runs rear, if any, and GenRight offers two, one for the Tracer and one for the TJ LJ. What's the difference? Also, on other Tech Talks, he always tells people they would need both front and rear anti-rocks, but most of the GenRight builds only use rear, if any.
Yeah, so
Might be a
the
question for
rear, when we do just a rear, we up the strength of the bar by about 30% because you're only running one. If you want anti-rocks, right, then a lot of the time people recommend them front and rear. I'm assuming you would
Right,
as
yeah.
well, right? So
Not just because we want to sell two.
it helps balance it.
Right. The idea, yours is different because you're putting a coilover on your Jeep.
Right.
So you're up in the spring rate in the front to balance it out with the heavier rear bar.
Yes.
For us, most guys are using, our product line is based around a guy doing a bolt-on suspension where he's using a coil spring. So what we're trying to do is get a balance between the front and rear. So that's why we're telling them to do front and rear, and you'll get the balance. You could run, when the anti-rock first came out back in 1999, I think it was, we would run the front one because the stock sway bar, back in those days, everybody would just disconnect the front sway bar. Well, we found out if you disconnect your front sway bar and you leave the stock rear sway bar, your front suspension is doing all the work. So the idea was, well, let's make a lighter rate front bar so it balances the front with the rear. So the first sway bar we ever made was the front sway bar for a TJ. And then after that bar was so successful, the disadvantage of the stock rear bar is it didn't give you very much travel. So after the guys used them hard off-road for a period of time, they'd either break the links or break the bar. So then we went back and made a rear bar. So there's a front and rear bar for TJ or LJ.
That are equally as flexible. You know, back, like what John's talking about is the stock sway bars were meant for a 8-inch travel shock. Well, people start putting 10, 12-inch,
yep.
you're way past what the things would do.
Right.
But your bars were designed
Right.
for that kind of long travel.
That's why the bar has like a longer arm. You'll see a stock bar, it may have like an 8-inch long arm. Well, these bars are 15, 16. We have arms that are up over 20 inches long. So that gives you more travel. It's going to travel farther without overstressing the bar and breaking the bar.
Yeah.
We have multiple people saying running ROCKJOCK anti-rocks on the front and rear of my Jeep, and I'm so glad I went that route.
Good.
That's good.
Good.
We're glad you went that route too.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
What other questions have you got?
People are still logging on and saying hi and where they're from.
Okay, good. Good.
so let's
And
move
listening.
on because we're still working our way around the table.
Table, yeah.
So, anyways, we've talked about.
Yeah, talk about that.
And actually this, on the track bar, instead of using a jam nut, our track bar uses, basically, it's a pinch bolt here. And this one, we're using a 1-inch 14 thread here. And I think this one has a 7/8 thread. So just to give you an idea of the difference on them. One of our products that we actually won an award at SEMA last year was this
For
adjustable bump
2023.
stop.
Best new off-road product
For
2023.
for 2023.
Yeah.
And basically, this works on a JL or JK, and what it allows you to do if you're, trying to adjust how far your tire bumps up into the wheel well. On this one, has spacers, so I have to kind of take it apart here. But these spacers go on there. You just take them and turn them and slide them off. You can adjust the bump stop. So we got an award at SEMA for that, which. This was actually a byproduct of other stuff we were working on. It was just, hey, we should make an adjustable bump stop because so many times, we get it in there and it could be a 1/4 of an inch longer or a 1/4 of an inch shorter, whatever it is, and you got to change the whole bump stop out, or you got to machine it, or you got to add a spacer. So this one, actually, you could change the length of it without taking the spring off the vehicle.
On the vehicle. The other advantage of putting the bump stop on the top, like mounting it to the frame versus the axle, with the way the geometry is set up on the front of the Jeeps, is that the alignment to the bump pad is going to be more square and centered if you're doing your spacing and your bump stop extension on the top versus the bottom.
Gotcha.
So a lot of kits have the spacing on the axle, and we actually have, our standard kits do it that way. But if you start looking and articulating it, if you put the spacing on the frame side, you actually have better, contact to the strike pad on the axle.
Instead of on one corner.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's what computer modeling gives you. You can
Yeah.
see that stuff
You
better.
Yeah, dial that in. Yep.
Paul K said 2016 JKUR still on original 44 axles. I have the heavy duty ROCKJOCK tie and drag link. Do you make a flip for the drag, or do I need to buy a new drag link that is a flip?
We have a flip drag link for the JK.
But it's a new part number. It is a new part.
Yeah, no, the flip drag link.
Yeah, but he's saying he has a standard. He's asking if there's a flip for the drag
Yeah,
link.
it's a whole
But
different
it's
drag
a new
link.
drag link.
So it's this drag.
Yeah.
So you run it into the top of the knuckle instead of up through the bottom of the knuckle, and it's going to give you about, I think it's like 2.5 inches of extra height on the drag link.
Now, when
So
you
we do have that.
When you do that, don't you need to modify the track bar?
Yeah,
as
if
well?
you do a flip drag link, you're going to have to adjust the track bar. The track bar is either going to have to come up on the axle or down on the frame, and most commonly is up on the axle. Like this has a Currie axle in it, and you can see their mount actually has 3 different holes. It has a stock location, it has like 1.5 inches and a 2.5 inch dimension on it. But so it depends. You can't change one without changing the other, or you're going to run into, some kind of bump steer problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all that geometry works together.
Yeah. Now on this one, did you mention this one you can flip? This newest one?
No, this one we're making a new knuckle, And on the new Knuckle, we've raised everything up, straight up.
So it's actually higher.
So on the Knuckle, when this comes out, it's probably
So
6
it'll
to
still
9
go on
months
the
out.
bottom, but
Yeah.
it's
But everything,
further
it's
up.
like you
Yeah.
move this up
Up
to
to there.
We move this up 2 3/4 inches,
Gotcha.
and then move this up to here.
okay.
So
And the JL version is already out
yeah,
and selling with
Okay.
great reviews in terms of like drivability, and then obviously the clearance
Right.
is there.
and that and I tell you that the history of that was, my daughter bought a new Jeep JL when she came to work with us for us 2.5 years ago. And so she's wanting to get into off-roading and figure this thing out. It says, hey, I'm working for off-road company, I should own a Jeep. So she buys a Jeep, and we're out on some trail out, I think up in Big Bear somewhere, and she parks it, and her husband wants to drive in it. He jumps in it, runs straight into a rock and bends a tie rod. Okay? Yeah, we need to look at that.
What our
Next time we
husbands
go
for.
out, her husband does the same thing, jumps in the Jeep, runs straight into rock, bends a tie rod. I go, yeah, we really need to, and that kind of, okay, we need to, let's
What can we do to?
Yeah.
we can make the tie rod heavier and stronger, which is, what is offered out there, like a 75 T6 aluminum or a heat treated chromoly bar that won't bend. Or the other thing is move it up so you don't hit it on rocks. And nobody had really done a high steer. There's some Knuckles out there available, but you could buy the Knuckle, but you have to figure out the steering for
On
yourself.
your own. That's right.
For us, we already had the steering. So hey, let's make the Knuckle,
And give somebody
and
the
then
complete,
Complete
system.
kit that
Yeah.
can be bolted
and
on.
we took it 2 steps further. We not only made the Knuckle, we made the bracket for the steering stabilizer, or you get the bracket for the ram assist as well.
Gotcha.
So if you're trying to put ram assist and all this stuff, it's not, usually people buy a ram assist just like this one. You get the brackets from PSC and you gotta figure out where they go and you weld them on there. This kit comes with a bolt-on bracket.
Got a couple of questions. Gary Swagger says it was a big advantage switching to the anti-rocks on both of our JL Rubicons versus using the factory auto disconnects. The auto disconnects failed multiple times. The anti-rocks are always working and improve the overall handling on and off road. And then we have a question. Justin Andrew asked, do you recommend a certain interval to completely tear down a Johnny joint to clean, inspect, and reassemble? My Jeep doesn't see road salt, mostly off-road or cruising around town. Also, what type of grease is best?
Okay, I don't recommend an interval because if you keep them well lubed, they will last a long time. We purposely, on our own Jeeps that we drive, we don't rebuild them. We want to see how far they will go. But we do lube them a lot. So, there is a lube. We actually sell it at ROCKJOCK, but basically it's a high moly lube. And right now, because of all the shortages of everything, you may actually have a hard time finding a high moly lube. So we
Oh, we
actually
do sell it.
We sell it, but
Yeah.
it's ROCKJOCK. It's a Johnny Joint
Johnny
grease.
Joint grease.
And Doug Lacrosse wants to know, John, if you remember putting one of the early rear anti-rock sway bars on his Jeep.
Yeah.
It's
Hello,
good that
Doug.
Doug's watching. It's good that he's watching. That's
He's
awesome.
probably the closest guy watching.
Going back to the Johnny joints, like your old JK, you had probably over 40,000 dirt
Yeah,
miles
I-
with all the same bushings, and
Yeah,
and the maintenance was grease them.
Right.
Yeah,
know.
so how often were you greasing them in that case?
Usually what I would do is I would grease them like before we went, wherever we're doing. If we were doing a trip to Moab, I'd grease them before we left. If we were doing a trip on the Rubicon, I'd grease them before we left. Or if I was doing a trip to Mexico, I'd grease them before we left. I mean, if you're just gonna go up to Big Bear and spend a half a day, you don't need to grease every time you go out. But if I'm gonna go on a long trip anywhere, I just make sure they had good grease in them before I
And
left.
certainly if they sound squeaky or dry,
Yeah,
they
then-
need grease.
Right, yeah.
Soon.
And then if you get to the point where they won't take grease, you're probably gonna have to rebuild it. If you get to the point they won't take grease, that means the grease is probably solidified in there and the grease gun won't push it through no more. So that would be a time when you do have to take them apart. Or if you get any play in them at all, usually if they get play in them means, the bushing's been destroyed or something, so.
Robert Hadley asked, do I need a sway bar with a double triangulated rear? He's got a 99 Wrangler doing TJ to LJ.
Well, that's a longer wheelbase, so that's better. And a lot of that is based on personal feel, right? So Once you get on the trail, if you feel like it's leaning too much to your discomfort, then you're going to want to put something on. But that's also outboarded coilovers. You know, you most likely can get that to feel like you want. If you're driving down the street, you're probably going to want a sway bar. Most everybody would.
I could take that one step further. Like we're talking about, sometimes you run a rear sway bar, no front sway, or no bar, or whatever. But when you get on something that's super, super steep, you know, say you're in Moab or something, you got a lot of traction, it's on super steep. The vehicle naturally is going to want to torque and lift the left front tire. So the sway bar, believe it or not, is going to help you on that super steep stuff, because it's going to want when you push down on the right rear, it pushes the left front down. So it's going to hold it flatter when you're climbing something super steep.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people don't understand how it works. It goes from corner to corner. So if I'm lifting here, it's pushing down the left rear corner. If I'm lifting here, it's pushing down the left right corner. And so the idea is to have a balance, but you know, most people don't understand that when you're on something steep, all the weight transfers to the rear. So now you'll see these Jeeps that are lifting like the left front tire, because every time the engine torques, it just wants to rock like that. So the sway bar is going to help combat that.
Everybody's really quiet. They're just listening intently.
We're probably giving you too much
They're
information.
learning.
Should we?
We'll move
Take a
on
few
to
minutes
what's
and
on the
we'll
table
follow.
because
Did we get to everything?
Oh,
that was on the
Everyone
table?
says you guys are good looking right now. Good
They
looking
are good looking
dudes.
guys. They're from
Nice
Orange County.
shirt.
Everybody down there is good looking.
Yeah, I think there's two more products that we haven't talked about on the table.
Oh yeah.
So these are for JK. We have them for JK and JL and JT. But basically, they're just frame plugs. So there's the nasty cross member in the front of a JL and JT and JK in front of the axle, and then there's a little, I guess, window in the back behind the axle also in the frame, and we're always looking at them, and there's dirt always stuck in them. So John had the idea of making frame plugs, and we had an open machine and some extra material at the shop. So we decided to, the first prototypes were for the JL. We threw up a quick Instagram ad and we sold out in the first, couple hours. So we decided, okay, we should probably make some more, and people are asking for JK. So we ended up making, the frame plugs for the JK in the two different locations, and we could show you on the Jeep here in a little bit.
We're gonna put some in.
And yeah, we'll put these on the Jeep here. And then the other product, and a lot of people don't realize we have it, but is to convert the front bushings on the axle for the upper control arms to Johnny joints from the standard stock bushings. So for a JK, it's actually a tower that gets welded in on one side and a press-in Johnny joint on the other. For a JL, JT, it's press-in on both sides into the stock housing, and just help with overall articulation.
and it comes with the bolts too, and a tool. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
just
an
something.
install tool and
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you grease it through the bolt. So.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that's, I think.
Well, I wanted to mention on the bump stops, for anybody watching, typically where once you get it set up and it's okay, where you're going to want it is when you change tire sizes. Even going from a new tire to an old tire, right? Like all of a sudden you're going to be rubbing the fender that you never rubbed before, and you can slip in a little bit
Right.
more. So that's where you folks would see the benefit of something like that. Not that you're out there messing with it all the time, but
Well, and one example, I guess, is our standard suspension kits that we sell, we try to optimize them around a 37-inch tall tire. So, the standard bump stop that's mounted to the front axle is set up for a 37 and a sport fender. Okay, someone decides to run a Rubicon in a 40, okay, they could probably get away with it. But if they're running a 40 with a sport fender, they need to add some more bump stop. So this just allows for that fine tuning, whether it's, tire size or wheel offset or whatever these, changes you're making.
right.
Because most suspension companies are baselining off of some general tire size and wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, and as a lot of you know, a 37 usually isn't 37, right? But the newer tires are getting closer
Right,
to
yeah.
actual true size.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
Federico says Jeep LJ 04 front 44 upgraded from OEM to current link steering. John, do you have a product to add a RAM or to have be added to assist the PSC steering box?
On the TJ or the JL, like I think
LJ.
this guy has,
LJ,
we don't have like a
LJ
bolt
04.
a bolt-on bracket for the RAM. We have them for the LJ.
No, for the
JL.
JL.
I know. All these
We don't have them for the TJ because a lot of guys, when they're putting the RAM on there, they're usually when they're going that big, they're also going to like a Dana 60 or something front end
Different
because they're
size,
running that big of a tire. They need that RAM assist. When you start putting the RAM assist on the stock like Y-Link on a like a TJ or JL, you can make it work, but it has some like weird angles you're dealing with too. So a lot of people, to take that one step further, a lot of people now they're putting JK front ends in their TJs. So it has more of a JK steering. And we actually make some, where we modify a JK steering, we make the drag link a little bit shorter, so when they put a JK front end under their TJ, they can make that work, and then it's a lot easier to mount your RAM, because now you have a tie rod that goes from wheel to wheel, instead of that tie rod being broken in the middle like the Y-Link on the TJ.
So is this the kind of stuff that people could see on your website, or are they better to call in? Like, what do you recommend for folks?
So we've been working a lot on our website over the last couple of years to make it as user-friendly as possible, to be able to find exactly what you want. But obviously, you know, it's a work in progress, and there's always open questions that aren't always answered on the website. So we do have a team that, you know, answers during business hours. We're pretty quick at responding to emails as well. If there's questions, a lot of times pictures, you know, are worth 1,000 words.
Right, right.
If you have questions, send some pictures of your setup for the guys to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And be able to answer you, you know, effectively.
Is there
I
a
guess, so.
generic like info at?
Yeah, so all of our any communication should, you know, start out with just going through sales at rockjock4x4.com. So that's 4x4.com. and all the questions will get distributed to
the proper
the right
department.
you
Right.
know expert for answering that question. But yeah, so like John was saying, we have a part number for a steering that bolts a JK front end into a TJ or LJ. And that's on the website, and it explains, you know, what it is. You know, it's not a super high volume thing, but there's enough people doing it that, hey, let's create a part number, let's have it there for ease of, you know, selling it. So.
He had a little typo in there and said, do you have a product to add a RAM to assist the PSC steering box?
Not for the LJ.
Not for LJ.
Okay, and
TJ.
then we have another question. Mike Stewart asked, he says, 2017 Rubicon Hard Rock. What's the difference between the polished aluminum sway bars versus the forged ones? These would be for a daily driver.
The difference is one's aluminum and one is forged. You know, a lot of people want to go aluminum, and you know, because it's cooler, it's a little bit lighter, but the chromoly arm, the splines and stuff are going to last a lot longer. So unless you just want something for the cosmetic effect of it, you know, the steel is probably better. Although we sell a lot of aluminum arms, and we even come and see us at Moab if anybody's going to be there, because you're going to see some really cool stuff that we've been making while you know, our machines have been slow, so we've been making some jewelry and stuff,
That's
you
cool.
know, on our machines. So. But yeah, there's no big advantage other than the aluminum's a little bit lighter.
Yeah, and not much, because this is all hollowed out, right? You guys maximize these.
These are pocketed on both sides.
Yeah, and in the forged chromoly, all the grain structure is the right way, so you've got all the strength, the best splines, but the lightest you can get it.
Right, yeah.
So this is really the way you want to go.
And this is our standard kit.
Yeah, all of our standard kits come with the forged mounts and the forged arms. And then the upgraded kits, we're calling it an upgrade, but if you think about the strength and the serviceability, the upgrade is the look and and the weight.
Yeah,
But we really want to push,
Standard
customers to the forged arm just because overall it's a higher quality part.
we make that bracket and build it aluminum as well.
Oh, wow.
And we sell, we sell a lot of them. And it's more money, but it does the exact same thing.
Yeah, and
It's
you
gonna
guys,
be a little bit lighter,
you guys
nicer
as the
looking.
user just know that the aluminum stuff on a product like this, that's part of the suspension, may just wear out faster. If it gets loose, it's gonna strip out. Like that's the way it is. So if you're one of those people that's on top of your stuff and you've got everything cycled out and you know you're not maxing it out, and because the moment you don't have something right, it's gonna stress the splines, and then you're gonna end up with a limp arm on there. So just know that going into it, that's part of the deal with buying that kind of thing.
Yeah, buying the jewelry.
Right, right. And, unless it's a show rig,
Yeah.
right? And, why not? So, good question, though. Good question. What else you got over there?
Everyone's watching and listening.
Okay, well then why don't we start working on bolting
Yeah,
something on?
since we have this Jeep here and we took the stock track bar off, we're gonna install a track bar, and then we're gonna install, after we get the track bar in there and adjusted, then we're gonna actually go back and install the drag link as well. So we've already taken the track bar off and we've already taken the drag link off, so you don't have to watch us labor through that.
Which was a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Anytime you're taking
So-
something old off, right, it's stripped, it's
So-
whatever.
Basically, when you're gonna install the track bar needs to be adjusted with the weight on the vehicle. So what we're gonna have to do is put this track bar in there, set this vehicle down with the weight on it, and we're gonna have to get down here
Yeah, we can-
and put the bolt in it and adjust it.
Mark Brown says, sway bar question. Stock wheelbase LJ, coils and shocks, rear outboarded 37s, anti-rock in the rear only. Little to no body roll even on the street. Do most of my wheeling in Sand Hollow. Could it be even better if I installed a front sway bar?
I mean, if it's working good and you're comfortable the way it works, is normally the sway bars are gonna, as a driver, they're gonna give you more like confidence in what it's going to do. And, that's what I feel is a sway bar. And one thing I could tell you, like this, the example I was gonna give you, if you've done much wheeling at all, you'll know what I'm talking about. Let's say you're coming down something and you're making a left turn, coming down a steep off-camber turn, and you're getting ready to drop that front left tire into a hole, and that hole, let's say, is a foot deep. Well, when that tire drops in there, what's going to happen? Your right rear tire is going to come up, and your butt cheeks are going to get really super tight, and your foot's going to start shaking like that, right? Well, if you have the anti-rock on the front, when that tire drops in there, it's going to feel like the whole front of the Jeep went down instead of just one tire falling in. So, if you've ever experienced that, and you've done any wheeling in Moab or Sand Hollow, you've probably experienced those times where it just doesn't feel good, especially going, like when you're coming down something like that. That's going to be the difference. It's going to feel like the whole front end just dropped, 6 inches instead of one wheel dropping 12.
Yeah. What I always describe to you guys is predictable, right? It's a lot more predictable as you're driving along. That you had said confidence. It gives you that confidence, yeah.
The people are loving this show. We have over 140 people watching live, and they're
Nice.
all just like, great show, you guys look so good.
Okay, we'll keep those questions coming. We're
We'll
happy to keep
trying to
answering them.
answer them.
Okay, let me wipe this dripping stuff right here. So at least
So we think we got this about ready. We kind of pre-adjusted it to whatever this length was. And you can see the organic shape on this is made to miss and give you a lot of strength. Right? Anything where anything's bent is where you're gonna, that's where you're gonna get flex.
That's right.
And so the guys that we've been putting this on, they'll come back and say right away, God, it feels like the front of my Jeep has less, it's more rigid. I don't feel it
Yeah, more
moving."
responsive. Yeah.
Because this is, you can see we did a lot to try to get the strength in here.
Yeah.
And we kind of took some of this bend out.
One of the things I think we've been like pushing for is drivability, right? So you want it to work, on the dirt.
Yeah.
But you also, there's so many customers that are driving these every day or to the trail. So we want to make sure we're also increasing the drivability on road.
Sure. I think
and-
everybody
and-
wants that,
yeah.
right?
So some of these, changes that we've made to the drag lengths that, is more rigid. Yes, it's giving us more clearance from the frame and everything else. The track bar, making it more rigid, have increased the drivability, and we're getting those comments straight back from customers. We've done some geometry correction, for the front control arms and stuff like that. The high steer knuckle for the JL. Yes, we're gaining a ton of ground clearance under the tie rod, but the first reaction of these people after they put it on and they go drive it down the freeway at 80 miles an hour, like, man, this Jeep feels completely different. So it's yes, we're gaining the ground clearance. We're not running into rocks. We're also gaining the drivability and improving the drivability to get to the trails.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I think that's where our companies, right, we work together, but our product lines are actually quite different, right? A lot of your builds are, much more extravagant than, the basic suspension kit, not basic, but the suspension, the bolt-on stuff that we're doing. And I think that's obviously you guys using the Johnny joints a lot and stuff like that. But it's some of the same customers, but some very different customers, right, too.
That's
so,
right.
That's kind of where we're.
And I've always talked to you guys about, what I'm trying to do is get you inspired to go off-roading more, right? So if these steps are the path that you're on, that's great. We just want to make sure that you're getting the best products you can.
Okay, we got a couple questions.
Sure.
Does ROCKJOCK only offer a 2.5-inch kit for a JKU, only able to find a 4-inch lift and nowhere near ready for a 4-inch kit?
Yeah, so with the JK, I'd have to look. We do have some different spring options. Our standard kits show a 4-inch lift. It's probably closer to 3.5. It's kind of across the board. I feel like so many companies are in that range.
Yeah.
But they're with the overlanding, with everything else, people are doing lower lifts.
Yeah.
I'd say call in, talk to the sales team. We have some different options with springs, and that we can make some lower options.
Yeah, the other thing you guys need to consider is, back in the old days, with the TJ, people were putting on a 6-inch lift because they loaded it with steel body armor to get a 4-inch lift, right? So the whole lift game kind of became, this theoretical. So depending on what kind of equipment you've got on your Jeep may vary how much lift you actually get.
Correct. Yeah.
And when that we've found, when we are setting the height of our lift, we're measuring the stock springs, and we may call it 4-inch, but it'll be a 4-inch in the front and maybe a 3.5 in the back, because we're trying to make the Jeep sit level. But I've seen 3-inch springs that are sitting higher than our 4-inch spring.
Right.
And I've seen 2.5-inch springs that are sitting, they call it 2.5, and I go, that's the same lift as we got. So I don't know. So you kind of got to watch that, because it kind of goes up and down.
Yeah, between the different companies.
Well,
yeah.
and even a sport sits at a different height than a Rubicon and everything
yeah.
else. So that's some other questions in the lift market on
Well,
how
and
do you
how much
market the
stuff
size.
do you have in your Jeep, right? Are you carrying, a ton, or if you're an overland person, you certainly are, but even as a rock crawler, do you have a ton of extra tools and cooler
tire
and,
hanging off the back.
whole family and a spare tire? Yeah, all that is just sinking it down.
And
so.
then, even the overlanding thing has changed a lot. We do some specific sway bars just for overlanding.
For that.
We never had that stuff before because
You didn't need that
I'm not an
spring rate.
overlander.
Right, you wanted to flex. You wanted to flex it to the rocks.
So when we see guys bolting a rooftop tent on, we're going, hey, they're bolting a rooftop tent, they're carrying more camping gear, they need a little bit more bar. So we've actually gone back and made some bigger bars for the JL and the JT that are specific geared around that overland.
a little bit heavier, right? Yeah.
But even that is kind of a guess. We're trying to figure, well, how much weight are they carrying? We
Yeah,
don't
'cause
know.
everyone's so different.
Everybody's carrying a different amount, especially when you come to a pickup.
Right.
When you're designing a spring for a pickup, how much rate do you give that spring?
Yep.
What is going to
Yeah,
be too
because
much?
they
What
have
is
stuff
not
in the
enough?
back and a tent, right?
Yeah.
So the most expensive spring that we make is the rear of a JT. It's a triple rate spring, and it's set to carry 2 dirt bikes. So when you've got 2 dirt bikes, it goes down onto the second rate with 2 dirt bikes in it, which is 500 pounds. So let's say you have 500 pounds of camping gear and a rooftop tent, so it just keeps adding up. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you make a long arm kit for JKU? Stock 44s, I have a 3.5-inch lift.
We
Sounds like that's been a discussion.
no,
No,
we
have
have a kit designed and
We do.
we do sell it. We don't really advertise it, but we do have a long arm kit. It's what he had on his JK. There are a few shops that will buy it and install it.
right, yeah. Because it takes some fabrication. We don't usually push it to be sold.
Yeah.
Because for one thing, it was designed to have extra wide axles. So if you're putting Dana 60s under your Jeep, you're going to have the wider axles. They don't, normally they don't come in stock widths. They always come like 70 inches wide. Well, that kit was designed around that. Although it's designed, you could put bent arms in it. We've never gone back and made the bent arms because everybody that wanted to do that long arm kit was going to have aftermarket axles. So
And
we did it
aluminum arms.
and
And
with
Right,
straight arms. So
right.
we've never really, I had it on my JK a few years ago, and I could tell you what it is. It's different than what everybody else is. The arms are 6 inches longer than stock. So that wasn't really what I consider a long arm, like an arm that's 36 inches long. It was kind of more of a true mid arm. So the arms are 6 inches longer than stock, and that's what it was. And the reason I did that, I didn't want the arm to get, because the arm needs to be mounted on the frame, I didn't want to push the arm too far forward so it would catch on rocks. And I didn't want to go up on the outside of the frame because that creates some other binding in the suspension. So I kept it under the frame, but it only went 6 inches long. And same thing in the front. We went 6 inches long in the front, but we sell a few of them, but it's never, it's, not our forte.
Well, like you said, it's not a bolt-on item anymore,
Right, yeah, it becomes
Yeah,
more
you're cut- yeah,
fabrication.
a lot of-
Right,
So we try to make everything as much as we can bolt on.
yeah,
And when you get into that stuff, it's really not bolt on anymore.
right.
So
Okay, Tom says that as good looking as you guys are, I'm pretty sure the scene would be improved if we got a glimpse of the cameraman. So should I come over there
Yeah,
and read
come
a
on
question?
over and say hi to everybody.
Alright.
Come over and say hi, get in the middle there and wave to everybody.
Hi, I'm Jennings. This is my beautiful Jeep. Okay, Summer Ann has a question for you.
okay.
How much higher does the tie rod sit with moving it up, as you stated, on a JL?
On the JL, the tie rod is 2 3/4 inches higher than stock. So if you're looking at your tie rod and your tie rod is pretty much level with the bottom of the diff housing, the housing on a JL is 2 3/4 inches in diameter. So now here is going to be up here.
Level with the top of the tube.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
So
That's
it's,
good.
it's quite a bit up there.
and if you hit that, then you're driving by Braille.
Okay. Tyler Hagan says, 05 TJ, I have the anti-rock on the front end that connects to the factory sway bar got cross-threaded. Could I just buy the ends for the threaded rod?
Yeah. All
All the
the
parts.
from ROCKJOCK, every little piece is available separately.
Okay,
They
and
just have
then
to call in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, that's not
you
something-
might
Yeah,
have a
if-
hard time finding the part number,
Yeah.
but you can buy it. There is a price for it.
Yeah, if you don't find it on the website, you can call in and get the part.
okay, then James Goldman asked, how much thread engagement is best in a Johnny joint for a control arm? Trying to push my axle back 1 inch in my ZJ, and I think I need longer joints.
Yeah, you probably do. This is the rule of thumb on all this stuff. If your Johnny joint thread is 1 inch in diameter, you need a minimum of at least 1 inch threaded into the arm. And that's not including the jam nut. So, if you thread it out and you got I think there's about 3 inches of thread and you have, 2.5 inches showing, you don't have enough thread. So there is some fixes for that. We make an extra long Johnny joint now. The Johnny joint is 6 or 9 inches long with a lot of thread on it. So but yeah, if you get to the point where you're threading it out, what will happen, if you just happen to hit a rock right there in the right spot, it'll either bend the joint or pull the threads out of your rod end.
Okay, Summer Ann asked, can you do the tie rod relocation to up higher with a kingpin axle? How much higher does the tie rod get relocated on a JL?
Well, on a kingpin axle, now you're talking 1-ton stuff. So that's a different application. Usually when the guys are doing stuff with kingpins, all the steering is custom made. You know, they're either
Using
going
Heims.
yeah, they're going to use Heims or you know, the big Chevy rod ends that, you know, people like to use and stuff like that. So the kingpin stuff is basically, you know, the early Chevy kingpin knuckle is what they're talking about.
Yeah, and
So-
then the tie rod's way up toward
Right.
the top of the C.
Okay, that's enough
Yeah.
camera time for that. Nathaniel asked Tony, he's got an 06 LJ Rubicon. Is the Tracer engine transmission skid the same as the Universal? And does the Tracer skid need the Universal transmission mount?
So the Tracer stuff is specific to the Tracer. The Universal one was really designed for the guy with something completely unusual in terms of engine and transmission combination or our Legend suspension kit. So it can be used on the Tracer, but I would recommend the Tracer engine skid itself. And then within Tracer and Elite, we have the Chevy LS, and then we have the stock application. So just make sure you're getting the right thing when you do order. And you can call in and get that info, okay?
And James Goldman added, my current joints are 6.25 inches, so the 9 inch is going to be the way to go. You may be getting a call from me soon to upgrade.
There you go. Good.
One more question. VB Tom, 2006 LJR with stock Dana 44s and 37s, 4-inch long arm kit. Do I need anti-rock on both front and rear?
Of course.
Of course. Thank you.
Actually, you know, we've been down this. I mean, the TJ LJ stuff, you know, has been a while, you know, since we've designed it all. But back in the day when we were selling a lot of that, we would literally take stuff like that to Moab. And, you know, a guy would come to me and goes, man, my Jeep, it scares me to drive it. And we would sell the guy a front anti-rock, because the front anti-rock is really easy to bolt onto a TJ. And the next day, the guy would come back and buy the rear one. He goes, it made such a big difference. I just had to have the rear. And so if you haven't, you know, had it on your Jeep and wheeled with it, you're not going to really know it until you actually try it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
One-
back then the TJ was such a short wheelbase, and people were putting big tires on them, so they were all over the place.
And they had, the TJ was a lot squirrelier than the newer Jeeps. So the anti-rock on the TJ makes probably the biggest difference because it's shorter, it's narrower, you know, it's got a higher center of gravity. Everything about it is working against you. With the short arms, it has a lot of like rear steer and stuff going on. So, and really the sway bars on that Jeep really just took something that was out of control and brought it back under control.
Okay, here's a stumper. Kevin K. We have the EXS system and are looking to get a spare U-joint. Happen to know the part number or have a recommendation? There are multiple part numbers for a 1480 U-joint on the website.
Huh.
Told you it was
Well,
a
we always
stumper.
just called them a 1480 joint, which would be out of like a what is it, 04 and earlier Ford pickup front end. It's probably the most common. The newer Ford pickups, I think it's when they came up with the bigger unit bearing, used a bigger joint.
They did.
But the earlier ones, so that 1480 is like the most common, and that's the 1480 series is what it is. But depending on who
For
you're
the
buying
front
it from,
axle, not
yeah,
the drive shaft.
no, that's what I'm talking about, the front axle. The 1480 joint, depending if you're buying it from Spicer or whoever you're getting it from, it's a super common joint. But I do not know the number, the Spicer number off the top of my head. We always just called it a 1480.
Yeah.
All right,
And,
we're
and like you
caught
said, you should be able to go to an auto parts store and
Right.
reference.
But I think it's 05 and 04, 05 and earlier Ford, like 3/4 ton, 1 ton, they use that joint.
Yeah.
All right, we're all caught up.
Oh, good. Okay, so we can get back to the track
Okay,
bar.
we need to put the weight on the tires so we can.
So I can drop it down for you.
Yeah. Where'd that bolt go? I got it. Just let you put weight on it, so I just shove it up in there. You already did the other thing. I just got it stuck in there, because I want to get it in there and measure it, and then,
What a good looking Jeep.
Okay, go ahead and put some weight on it.
Up in there or more?
How soon will the JK Knuckle be
Yeah,
out?
go all the way down to ride height, so it's starting to come off the lift.
Hey John, how soon will the JK Knuckle be out?
That should be.
The Jake, it's probably 6 to 9 months at least out. The JL ones are in stock now. We just started working on the JK. We actually just kind of approved like the engineering on it and how it's gonna work and how much lift it's gonna have. But now we have to have the patterns made to make the cast knuckle itself, which that alone is probably a 3-month process to get that made. And then after we get that made, we'll have prototypes poured and machined, and then we have to take those prototypes and make sure they work right, you know.
Field
So
test
they'll go on, we'll field test them on a vehicle and all that. And then once we get through all that done, then we'll approve it, and then once we approve it, normally it'll take a couple months before we get the first batch in. So,
Alright.
so anyways,
We got the bolt.
They're
We
used to me describing the R&D process, so you
Well,
just verified my
everything,
entire speech
Why does it
every
take
time.
so long?
Yes, it
Are,
takes a long
are
time.
Believe
TJ
me.
Knuckles coming next?
I could make new products faster than we could get the paperwork and everything done.
Yeah.
Because I will literally walk out in the shop, go on an engine lathe and make something, go, hey, let's put these on the Jeep and see how they work.
Right.
You know, and then we'll you know, and there was actually a bigger story to this. You know where this actually started?
What?
We were making our display to go to SEMA last year, and I'm looking at the display and it's got big holes going through the deal, and I go, man, that looks terrible. So I made some aluminum caps and knocked them in there, and then I was thinking, you know, well, those things need to be black because the frame's black, and I had some plastic that we were making bushings out of, so we machined some out of plastic, and
And there you go.
that's the real story of how that
That's
started.
how it all comes about.
Somebody said, I can't believe, not Currie, but ROCKJOCK is making frame plugs. I go, hey, look at the frame. It really,
Yeah. And did you actually were you able to get a shot of that, Jen?
I'm confused.
Over
What?
here.
Wait, everyone's laughing at the TJ Knuckles coming next. Why is that
No,
funny?
the TJ Knuckle, I don't know if we'll do it. Because the TJ Knuckle, the problem with the TJ Knuckle, it's a lot lighter weight, and you can't get as big of a universal joint through it. So we'll probably never do a TJ Heister Knuckle. So
Does
All
anybody
right.
make one?
I think Terraflex made
Oh,
something.
that's right. They
yeah.
made something.
Yeah, they made a steering.
Yeah.
So right now we just stuck it on there. We got the weight on the vehicle. We need to straighten the front tires out. And I'm actually going to take a tape measure and I'm going to measure to make sure the front axle is centered under the Jeep.
Okay, what do you want me to show? Over here?
Oh, the cap he was just talking about.
Yeah. See this cap right there?
Oh yeah.
So,
And then there's one more down here. It's a little harder to see. Let me grab my light. 'Cause
Your mom says my Jeep is good looking and cleaner than her kitchen. It just got rained on. I don't know how clean it really is.
yeah.
But with these bright lights, it looks really clean.
So it looks like we've got this. I'm just going to measure this. I want to make sure. The way I like to measure this, so people know, if you have an anti-rock on there, I measure from get your front tires straight, and I'll measure from the inside of the rim right here to the sway bar.
Okay.
Because that's pretty much centered on the vehicle. So right there, I'm showing it's like 8 1/8 inches from the side of the wheel to there. So we just want that to match on the other side. So I'll come over here and measure this. So this one is actually measuring like 7 1/2. So we need to double check. Make sure.
Oh, actually, we need to let it down further.
More?
Yeah. Yeah, so
Make-
so it's all the way off the.
Better?
There. Now we got all the weight on. You got to
Okay.
do this with the weight on the vehicle because the track bar pushes the front end back and forth.
So is that better?
So we're 7 5/8. So I think we still need to.
This is a cool trick, by the way, that he's showing you guys.
Well, it just makes it easy to measure because
Yeah.
I've got this thing right here, and that thing is centered on the frame. So that's like right at 8 to the center of that. So we're 3/8 of an inch. So we need to go 3/16 of an inch. Let's see which way do we need to move it. We need to move the axle that way. So we need to turn.
To
We need to
lengthen it.
turn that thing like one complete turn out. And I think it's easier to disconnect it from the top right here and turn it if I can. Hey Brandon, kind of push back and forth on the frame.
Yeah, jiggle a little.
You got the nut on it.
And by the way, if you're,
I didn't tighten it.
if you move your vehicle like this and you hear that kind of a clank, that means you've got some clapped out stuff.
I wanted to go.
That means you actually wheel.
I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come to me and go, man, my Jeep's all over the road.
Hey, take it off.
And I go check it and it's just loose. And sometimes it's loose bolts, sometimes it's clapped out joints.
Okay, we got a
There's a
couple
nut on the
of
back, just turn the
questions.
bolt.
Sure.
2005 LJ and with savvy mid-arm and front anti-rock. Should I add the rear bolt-on anti-rock part number or the universal part number with the bent 20-inch arms and 45-inch wide sway bar?
Well, if he wants a bolt on, he could do the bolt on. See, it needed to go.
And to make it longer. So it pulls it, or so it pushes it.
Pushes it, yeah.
Okay, so this has got to go longer. So
Hang on, John's thinking.
turn. Yeah.
Okay, another question.
I only want to do it once.
2017 JKU with stock Rubicon sway bar disconnect. Will I need to do any reprogramming to the computer to put on the ROCKJOCK? And if so, does it require some type of taser or a Mopar dealership?
What is it? What was it again?
If
Do I
they
need any
switch from the
reprogramming?
factory Disconnect
On a
to,
JK?
yeah, to
Yeah.
anti-rock.
Yeah, well, if you want to turn the light off, the sway bar light off, then either, or most of them are, AEV sells the,
That little ProCal thing.
yeah, the Pro Cal, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can do that through the programmer. I've seen people
Can you get that in there?
actually just leave the sway bar motor up in there, plugged in, so that they, you know, the computer still saw it in the
Just get the
system.
bolt in there.
But a lot of people want to resell
You
their
need to push
disconnectable
the
sway
Jeep
bar.
this,
Your way?
the body this way.
Sounds like we got it.
Let me see where we're at. See
Okay,
if we went the right way now.
John's gonna double check it.
Okay, yeah, we're.
Oh, someone wants you to explain the difference between Currie and ROCKJOCK. Like 2 different businesses
Yeah.
before all like was one thing.
I can give you
Okay, go, Brandon.
brief background. So, Currie Enterprises was founded by Frank Currie a long time ago. And basically, ROCKJOCK was part of Currie Enterprise. So, the ROCKJOCK products were the Jeep products or the off-road products, like the suspension, the Johnny joints, the sway bars, and all of that. 3+ years ago, trying to figure out how do we continue to grow these companies and whatnot, we decided to split the company into 2 separate companies with a main focus on suspension and steering and sway bars being ROCKJOCK and drive terrain being Currie. So that's the general difference. We still share some warehouse space. We still are a family. We still all
Friendly.
go out wheeling
Yes.
together. We still spend family vacations and holidays together. But it's really allowed us, both companies, to continue to grow with a focus versus drive terrain. The axle side is the main business or whatever. What is the priority when you have so many different product
Right.
lines?
That's
And
right.
this has really been able to let us focus on our priorities and grow both companies separately. So.
And then Rob asked a follow-up on the last question. Can you just put black electrical tape over the light?
You absolutely
you
can.
You can do whatever you want, Rob.
That's a lot cheaper than a ProCal. Okay, so we got it in the middle?
Yep.
Okay. So now that's in there, then it's a matter
Yeah,
of
we just need to tighten up the bolt. Actually, we could lift it back up.
back up.
The bolt.
Got it.
Sure. Now make sure, I think it rolled
Did
back
the-
a little bit, or forward.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah, just move that.
Do you want to move the arm?
Yeah, probably move it back and forward just a little.
Yeah, get it underneath that control nut.
There we go.
I've got this one.
And this front one. There we go. Okay, ready? Coming up.
That's the Tony way. Black electrical tape.
That's right.
Who is this Rob Lawson fella?
How high you want to go?
A little higher, so I don't have to.
Okay, we got another question. T said Blaine and Gerald typically will add a rear anti-rock on a LJ with a savvy head arm, but what's the ideal rear sway bar that should go with such build? Bolt-on part number or universal part number?
If you're running like a coilover kit in the back, you're gonna have to go with something universal because normally your arm's gonna run into the coilover. If you're running just a regular coil spring in the back, like factory, then you could run the bolt-on kit. Unless there's something other highly modified on your Jeep, that doesn't work. But normally that bolt-on kit will work in most applications. But if you've relocated like your shocks, where they, instead of them, they'll put them up in the back, or a coilover where it goes up in the back, then you have to run the sway bar forward of the rear axle and the arm's going back.
And
So
that,
I
is
think
that
that's how Tony
is that
does
a
it on his-
weld-on kit? That's how we
Yeah,
do it.
that'd be a weld-on
Yeah.
kit. Yeah, we don't make
So-
we don't make a universal kit or a bolt-on kit.
For
Most of our bolt-on stuff is all really made for like if you're modifying a stock Jeep or something that's in its stock form. But if Jeep gets highly modified, then you have to go to something universal to make it work. You want to tighten up that bolt?
Chimed in kind of late. Can we get a walk around to the JKU? You guys are showing, looks like it's got the Currie 44 in the front. What about the rear and suspension? It does have a ROCKJOCK 44 in the front.
Yep.
Rear is the Dana
Standard
44 stock that's
44.
really dying and needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and you're running
With
what,
the
air
ROCKJOCK.
bees?
No, I have
Or
Eaton
Eaton
E-lockers,
E-lockers.
chromoly shafts, anti-rocks in the front, bead locks, 37s, 4-inch lips. Hydro assist steer, AGR, I think.
Is it?
Wind came back.
Oh.
Oh no. I hope we didn't lose it. No. The camera went blank, but it came back. I don't know what it was.
Some loose connection.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, maybe it's this. It's getting pulled. It's too tight. It's too tight. On here.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. Okay.
Good thing you're here.
Sorry, everybody.
Sorry.
More technical difficulties. We're always fighting that. All right. Is that looking good, boys?
Let me get this one. I'm left-handed, so I'm always pushing the button on these.
Do you have
Wrong side.
No?
Yeah, this one was 7/8. There was a 13/16 for that, I think.
There you go. So now you guys can see how beefy this is through that bend. That's what John was talking about, how that's forged into the shape.
And you want to make sure these are tight.
Yeah.
So we'll go back and recheck it by hand, but
Yeah. I don't know what number that's on the impact, but that's strong enough to strip the threads off.
well, that's why I always go back and recheck it.
Yeah.
This one up here, we need to tighten up well, let's tighten this outside one. We may have to pop that back up to get to the inside one.
Oh,
Yeah, because
it's right there,
This
huh?
is an aftermarket bracket,
yeah.
and it's covering.
I don't know if you can see that.
Sorry, trying to get in closer.
The aftermarket bracket
That
is
helps.
covering
There's,
covering the pinch bolt?
the pinch bolt.
Yeah. He's just working on the pinch bolt since there's no jam nut.
What's a pinch bolt?
So what it does is it clamps down on the threads so that the Johnny joint in this case cannot spin. It locks into place.
It's hiding behind
And
the PFC
yeah,
there.
part of
It's all in here.
when a lot of the time when those came out, what they were after was they didn't want this whole thing to flop around. You could pinch it and lock it into a position.
I think we're gonna. We'll set it back down and pull that bolt out and lift that up so I can tighten it down because I can't get the wrench on it because this bracket is longer than my factory.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I can do that.
All right.
After, why
Everything's
don't-
in its place and everything's
Yeah.
snug.
Why don't we put the
We'll move
drag
on to
link
the
back
drag
on?
link?
Yeah, because we're 5 minutes over, but if people are still on,
Oh, we have
then we're gonna.
150 people.
Okay, then
More
we're gonna keep
people.
going. Yeah.
They
And,
like watching
and
us
you guys
sweat
They love
keep
you guys.
asking the questions. So.
I like to watch them sweat a little.
Yeah. This is actually pretty cool that you're getting to watch John Currie himself work on
I've done plenty
on
of
a Jeep.
sweating.
Oh, we need to get this sign first.
Oh.
Turn the wheel out.
Oh, so look, here's a trick. They
Turning the
have to
wheels?
turn it all the way in order to slip that in.
Can't really see it.
Yeah.
Ah, there
It,
we
it
go.
just has to do because they kind of overlap. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, they turned it all the way to
Slides
get it
in.
in. And now they're going to turn it back to get it on the pitman arm.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Right there.
Turn it back a little bit. Go back here a
Back
little bit.
that way. Right there. That should be pretty good. You got the nut? Yep.
Brett Palmer, bigger hammer is what Tony does.
Don't worry, we had the hammer out earlier.
Yeah.
We saved you guys that
Bigger
part.
hammer.
We saved you guys that part.
At one point, both of them were swinging hammers at the same time, at the
Well,
same
and
bolt.
that's what happens. You know, you got old Jeep parts that have been put on who knows how long ago, you know.
Beat up and
Yeah.
melted on.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the most common failure I find with the Johnny joint is that it got too close to a heat source.
Oh, yeah,
And
but.
then it melts
You gotta
the.
remember, it is urethane. So
That's right.
yeah, if it gets too hot, yeah, the urethane gives up.
How long has Curry been in business?
1959.
Wow.
Long time.
So, and my dad started it in 1959, and then he made parts for the poultry industry. My dad worked for a company called Taylor and Manufacturing. They're in Anaheim. It's only right around the corner from where I grew up as a kid. And he worked there. When he started there, they were making poultry equipment, like to go down between the aisles of chickens and get eggs. And so my dad was not an engineer, but he was pretty
Clever.
He was a Southern California hot rodder. That's what he was. So he went to work there out of the Air Force. He was in the Air Force, and so and when he was there, they started making industrial vehicles as well. So they're making, like you see running around college campuses and airports and stuff like that. And then they got into the golf cart market as well. So he started making. My dad actually designed the first golf cart that Taylor Dunn Manufacturing made. Well, one of my dad's ideas was that they should use an automotive differential and cut it down and put it into the back of these golf cars.
Yep.
So
We have one of those here.
yeah, so he
Old Taylor Dunn. You saw it, huh?
he originally started that with a banjo style Ford rear end, with the two ends bolt on. And so my dad made a deal with Old Man Taylor that he could buy these rear ends and supply them to Old Man Taylor. Well, he started supplying the rear ends to him. He'd go buy them on the weekends and sell them to Old Man Taylor. And then as time went on, he made a deal with him that he would take them apart and sell them the pieces. And then it went on. He would take them apart, cut down the axles, cut down, and so it kept growing and growing and growing until about 1974, 73, 74, the golf cart industry got so big that my dad had to quit working at Taylor Dunn to go buy enough rims to
Keep
to
up with the
keep
demand.
up with the
Oh,
demand.
wow.
Well, that was going along great, and then Yamaha came along and took over the golf cart market.
Oh.
So we were selling 800 rims a month to Taylor Dunn, and it went down to 400 rims a month. Well, that's about the time that me and my brothers graduated from high school, and that's the time we got into automotive aftermarket.
Doing
When
more
I
hot rod
graduated high
stuff.
school in 1975, V8 mini trucks and V8 Vegas and all that stuff was super popular. So we started building rims for the hot rod market. So we just, it was just something we had the rear ends and we had the know-how to do it. And then that turned into a hot rodder named Tom McMullen showed up at the house one day, needed a rim for his hot rod. He was the owner of McMullen Publishing. So that led into running ads in his magazines, and so it just
Took
developed.
off, right?
And me and my brothers took over the business completely in 1985. So I would have been 10 years out of high school. So me and my two brothers took it over 100%. And then we worked together up until, in 2012, we moved from Anaheim to Corona, which was a huge move for us. We moved, our building got condemned in Anaheim. They were doing a great separation with the railroad. And so we were trying to find a building to move into. Long story, we ended up, we had a building in Corona. We rented the building behind it, and we moved everything out there. It was a big deal. It was a big move for us.
I remember that.
So we got in there, got all settled. We had to go back and sue the OCTA because they were supposed to pay for our move, and
They didn't.
They figured they didn't have to.
Oh.
So we went back. We went back and sued the OCTA. We ended up getting our money out of them, and then that was about the time that he goes, "Hey, what are we going to do with this company now that we're, I'm, 60 years old or whatever it was at the time? We're thinking, well, should we, we need to move forward, or, basically, I told my brothers, you guys just buy me out and you guys do it, and I'll go do my own thing, because I just figured that him and I would go into business together."
Right.
Doing something. I didn't know what. I just figured that was going to be the destiny. We're going to go into business together, and if I can't go into business with him if I'm working here, and I'm tired of working with you guys, so I want to do something else. Honestly, that's kind of what happened.
Yep.
So then we were looking at it. We tried to market the company to sell it, and my brother Ray said, "Hey, we've been doing all this accounting, trying to figure out, what money we're making here or there, and what, where it's going, where it's coming from." He goes, the product line, or the ROCKJOCK product line, as far as I could figure, is about 30 to 33% of the company. He goes, "Would you be interested in taking that and taking that product line?"
And run them with Brandon.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that. I said I would, if my son would be wanting to do it with me, because I didn't want to do it by myself.
Right.
It was going to be more than
You were up for.
I've
Right.
always been involved in the business, but not the financial end of it. I was more of the product development guy at Currie. That's what I did. I made products, whatever it was.
Right.
I was in the shop, thinking of something I could sell.
Yeah.
And it was up to those guys in there to figure out what to do with the money,
Right.
And how to sell it.
and how to sell it. And
Well,
market
that's how
and
I
all
got
that
involved
stuff.
with you, right?
Right,
Through
yeah.
KOH and
Right,
building
so,
bigger rear ends
you
and
know,
all that stuff.
And I was always, as far as the off-roading part of it, getting involved in the rock crawling part and all that. So anyways, I went to him and asked him if he would be interested in doing it. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm getting tired." He was in the sunglass business and designing sunglasses, and he was getting tired of doing that. And he told me, "I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to do something else."
Here's your
So-
comments.
So anyways, you're getting the whole story of
Max Dollinger
the
says.
Currie saga.
Max.
We don't need anything from Matt.
Yeah, we do. He says John graduated the year before I was born. Old people.
Oh, man.
Everyone call Max if you have any questions about ROCKJOCK. Just call him directly and ask for him.
And
So
Doug
anyways,
Lacrosse said, "I like the way
that's
Frank
kind
tell
of
that story."
What brought us to where we're at,
Yep.
this is a way, you know, the rear end side of it and the product side of it. The rear end side, it always took precedence over everything else we did. The product side was like my hobby, you know, and my older brother would tell you it was a waste of time. You know, why are you wasting time? So,
Everyone says
but
that's
for
an
me,
amazing
It
story.
wasn't a waste of time. It was just something I had a passion for.
Right, yeah.
And now it's a standalone business.
Right.
Almost every
That's that
product
good.
that we made was something I would use on my own Jeep.
Yep.
So and that's, you know.
Hey, John, can they order that nice golf shirt you're wearing?
No.
These are
Oh,
Those were for SEMA.
it's like the yellow hat. Oh,
usually the only way to get one of these shirts, you have to trade it for me. Usually at
Oh,
Oh.
and Jeepers Jamboree.
Jamboree or something.
We've done that a couple
Yeah.
times.
David,
Traded some shirts in the past.
David Castillo says Frank knew how to party.
Oh boy.
Well, I think he probably instilled that on all of his sons and
And
grandkids.
grandkids.
Amazing story. Everyone liked it.
One thing we learned from it.
Max is cracking up.
Good stuff.
No, we had, you know, with my dad going with us to the events, you know, he liked to go off-roading, he had a lot of friends, you know, he would always come to the events with us, but he had his own group of friends that he'd go wheeling with too.
Sure.
Because we were working, you know, so my dad, you know, when he was getting close to his retirement, he would do a lot of wheeling with his buddies. So,
Yeah.
and that helped us develop product. You know, he'd come back and, hey, you know, I seen this on that, or hey, I think we need to make something like this, and then, you know,
Start
and
working on it.
usually, you know, I would, you know, he would tell me or show me a picture of something or whatever, and I would, you know, try to figure out, you know, well, how can we do that, and you know, so it was, you know, like I said, it was more of a labor of love, I guess, you know, because a lot of the stuff is stuff we're using in our own vehicles.
Hobby turned into a business.
Yep.
Yeah.
And everything, it's not all fun and games. I mean,
Right. It's a lot
I
of
think
work.
I've been going to Moab. I don't even know what was the first year I was there. I think I had a CJ7 with a big block Chevy in it. And I'm thinking that was...
That's hard to package in there.
Yeah. Well, I just happened to have the engine, so it went in there.
Put it to use.
Because I built a boat before that, and that was the engine out of the boat. So,
Nice.
so I'm thinking that was in the mid to late 80s. Was the first time we went to Moab. And then I don't think I probably have maybe only missed like 1 year in all that time. You know, so.
That's pretty good.
But I enjoy going too, so I always enjoy going.
And we're getting ready to go.
hanging out.
Yes, we are.
The faces change over the years, like you know, mine keeps getting older. I was going there when I was a kid. Now the older guys that are there, you know, they're all getting to be really old. Now
Yeah.
I'm one of the old guys.
Tito asked, John, whatever happened to your father's white TJ with the AEV Highline?
That Casey owns that right now, and it's at Orange Shop in Daytona, Florida.
Oh wow.
And they're doing some work on it. I'm not sure exactly what, but yeah, that has an LS1 motor in it. It's the
I
last.
know Casey wants to drive
Yeah.
that again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
it's
he
getting
made-
worked on.
He
Yeah.
made some deal with Oren to work on it. 'Cause Casey's got so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
He's got stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where it's at.
We're gonna find out in
know.
a couple, well,
Yeah,
a few
they're-
weeks, like
yeah,
a month
they're,
from
uh,
now.
Yeah.
I don't know how close it is to being done or where it's at exactly.
And Oren just had a baby, so I don't think much has happened.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where it's at. And yeah, that was really one of the last Jeeps my dad built, you know.
That's cool.
And Dave Castillo did the exhaust on that. He was just on there.
Yeah, nice.
So
That's great. That's great.
stuff's still around. We went there the first time I went to Jeep Beach. I don't know what year it was, but I found a guy had bought my dad's original CJ7 that had a Corvette motor, it was pre-LT1 Corvette motor in it, and it was. And if you ever seen the Jeep, it's that metallic brown with the yellow like fenders around, stripes around the fenders. The guy was there with that Jeep, and then he actually took the glove box off, sent it to me so my dad could sign it.
Oh, that's cool.
So we got the glove box from
That's
him.
cool.
He sent it to me, and my dad signed it, and we sent it back to him. So
That's cool.
I don't know. I think the guy sold the Jeep now. I'm not sure. So made it worth more with my dad's signature.
Sure.
Zach King said, I work at ROCKJOCK and I can't believe how much I've learned tonight. Holy cow, y'all. That's cool.
Yeah. Well,
All right, so we got
The whole
this.
thing's a learning experience.
drag
So
link
now
in there?
we've actually got this bolted on. Actually, I never tightened this end up. But, and from here, basically, you would set it on the ground and adjust the steering wheel.
And adjust the steering wheel. Okay.
So, and that, you do adjust the steering wheel by basically just turning this right here.
George Kane says, John, great products. I use them on my Jeep. Some of the best times wheeling have been with you. Moab, Johnson Valley, great times. Room full of rock stars.
Rock something, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead and put cotter. I'm just gonna get this one tightened. Yeah, the cotter key on these is more for like a safety, so if it does come loose, that they can't actually, come off.
Yeah. These are really nice upgrades. If you guys, like John said, have that stock axle in there, these are bolt-in things, adjustable, really nice.
Okay, put one up there. So now we could sit it on the ground.
We still have so many people watching.
And almost an hour and a half later.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Well, now that you heard a life story, I don't
they
know.
loved it. Everyone said great story, amazing story.
And then my daughter, I didn't tell you about my daughter, Brandon, and then after, we were starting on this process of dividing up, we not only divided up the company, we divided up all of our assets as me and my brothers were partners in everything we owned. So, to keep it simple, if something happened to me, I needed to make sure everything that I owned would go directly to my kids. So that's why we went through the process of dividing not only our the business up, but our properties and everything. We actually ended up dividing up. So
That's good.
anyways, it's worked out.
Makes
We're
everything
still
simpler
we're
for the
still friendly with my brothers and stuff, and like I said. My daughter is right now with Casey in Park City. He gets to go to Park City every year with the Monster. They have a house
right.
in Park City, so
Nice.
they're doing that right now. So
That's cool.
so it's all good. I hope it stays that way. So. But we enjoy it's like me and my brothers. A lot of stuff we enjoy doing the same thing, and we enjoyed doing the same thing with my dad. So it wasn't like we were just we had to do it. We did it because we enjoyed doing it.
Well, you were in Mexico with them for a week, or for 8 days too.
Yeah. So
Brent Palmer said Currie built a YJ with leafs and an LT1, which I modeled mine after.
Yep, I built. I forget what year YJ it was, but it had the LT1 out of a Corvette. I built a couple of them actually. There was a blue one with scallops on it, and then a white one that 4-wheel drive and sport utility had. That was Phil Howell's, and that's how I built mine. I built him for him. I built his for him, and then he got me all the parts for me to build mine. So.
Oh, that's cool.
So I used to do everything for nothing. So that's how I paid for it. I do work for other people, and then, so I built, there was a blue one with a Corvette motor. One had a Corvette motor and one had a Camaro, but they were basically the same motors. And so, but there was a white one and a blue one, and mine was the blue one with scallops. And then I sold it to one of my buddies from high school, and then the last time I seen it, it came up on eBay somewhere, and he was selling it, and I think Phil Howell bought it off of eBay, I believe, and he said when he opened the glove compartment, he goes, all your stuff was still in there, the way you sold it.
Wow.
So, and that was the last I heard of it.
Incredible.
But anyways, we want to put the weight on it, we'll adjust that steering wheel, and then we just gotta tighten these up, and we can let everybody have the night off after that.
Great tech talk, best one ever. Thank you. Cool to see John wrenching on Jeeps since you don't race Jeeps anymore. Is that true, John?
I would race Jeeps, but I'm not know if I'm it's a lot more work than
This.
right. Yeah. I had a good time doing it, but I don't know if I wanna do it anymore. I'd rather just go out there and support somebody else doing it. Cause they're doing most of the work and I'm just having the fun.
Well, you still.
I like to go out and pre-run.
Yeah, pre-run or just off-road in general. Yeah.
So where's our
Okay, steering wheel right there is straight. So
Are the
let's
wheels-
turn a little bit.
Okay, put the wheel straight, and then I'll adjust, and then I'll move the steering wheel. Let me get what wrench is that, like a 17 mil? Oh, that, make this work.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Mark?
About right there.
Alright. Did it spring back or is that?
Okay, tell me if I'm going the right way.
You are
Actually,
going the
this-
right way.
Okay? Tell me when it's straight.
Okay.
A little more passenger.
Okay. Stop there, John, and let me turn the wheel just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is that better?
Yeah, it's hard to.
Most likely, you'll have to go drive it up and down the street to get it exactly
Okay, so
right.
turn it a little more, John, that same way you were going.
Same way?
Yep. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Right there.
Hey, thanks for fixing up my Jeep. Pretty darn cool.
Okay, so for those of you watching, this is an important step in a JK or JL because the computer is watching where the steering wheel is in relation, or it's going to turn on the traction
Man,
control.
give me another.
So you need to have the wheel straight. It's not like the old days where you could drive with the wheel sideways. Your Jeep will not be happy. While they're doing that, I wanted to hold up the old track bar. So all the track bars, have a bend in them on everybody's kit. And what happens is, in the early days, they weren't using thick wall. They weren't doing mandrel bends. These were a problem. And this was a failure point for a lot. And what they did was they started gusseting in here. Well, that hump that you see in the track bar is to actually get over the differential. So when you start gusseting that up and doing things, now it's going to hit. And so the way that they've designed this one, they were able to optimize everything, get the strength and the shape to clear everything. They were telling me about how everything nests real nice, and there's a lot of benefits built into this. So when you guys do go to Eastern Jeep Safari or Jeep Beach, or even just get a chance to see this stuff up close, do check it out. It's definitely a very nice product. So especially like we've been talking about all night, if you are one of those guys that wants to bolt in upgraded products, this is perfect for you. Oh, just trying to get it in the neutral position.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it so it doesn't.
Jennings, what happened to your other orange Jeep? Well, that is at
Yeah,
home.
kinda.
I have two.
Yeah, she has two.
Daily driver and an off-roader.
Yeah.
Although I off-road both.
So what John's doing is when you lock down that collar, you want to make sure that the tie rod end is in the neutral position. So that's what he's working on.
Well, actually, I like to rotate this top one back a little bit so it holds that up.
Oh,
So it
up.
holds
I'll
it
just-
from
Okay.
flopping.
So another tip technique. Sometimes when you don't do that, then you can hear that clunk, right? Because of the way it's arced.
Yeah, because it's kind of hanging out there, so there's
Yeah.
weight on it. Yep.
Like I said, you may have to go back after you drive it and readjust this. But this will get you down the road.
Okay, so all I need to mess with is the pinch bolt on the track bar.
Yeah, and then if you need to adjust the steering
Steering
wheel.
wheel. Okay, cool. All right, well, everybody got to see what that looked like. Is there any last minute stuff before we sign off that you guys want to talk about? It was great to have you guys here and do this.
So it's
in
been
person,
really fun,
yeah.
actually. Get a little workout.
Yeah. Let's see, for all of you watching, please share this with your friends. make sure that everybody, gets the benefit of seeing a show and products like this. Obviously, I've worked with these guys for a long time, and it's almost been 20 years. So.
Well, maybe we'll have to come out, when we get the heist here, maybe we'll have to come back and install it.
Sure.
Then we can.
Yep.
That might take a little bit longer.
Maybe a couple shows. Sometimes we do break it up.
Maybe we could get it mostly installed before we go live.
Yeah.
Get the dirty work done.
All right, everybody, we're going to say goodnight. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.